Hello, my cozy little creeps, and welcome back to Crafting Crimes with Tay, where we go through true crime stories stitch by stitch. Today, we will be diving into a case that really infuriates me, not only because of the horrific crimes that occurred, but also due to the amount of time that it took to catch the culprit due to the corruption that was going on. And the guy has a pretty cool name, and I hate that. I hate when bad guys have a really cool name. This is the case of the Long Island killer, Rex Heuermann. Heurmann is currently being accused of being the Long Island serial killer, aka the Gilgo Beach killer. Basically, this case has to do with multiple bodies of women being found along a stretch of Long Island Beach, and the reason that he wasn't caught isn't because he's a criminal mastermind, but more so it has to do with the police aspect of it and more the corruption. So unfortunately, due to the shoddy police work and corruption and all that, I know I keep saying corruption, I'm sorry, he was not caught for about a decade, which is very unfortunate that had to happen, because who knows how many lives could have been saved. So let's go back to May 2010. A 24-year-old woman named Shannon Gilbert, I think it's Shannon, but it looks like Shannon. Shannon Gilbert calls 911 after she is fleeing a house in Oak Beach. She calls 911 frantically saying that someone's gonna kill her. The correspondent isn't taking her super seriously, unfortunately, and she goes missing. No one hears from her after that night. Shannon's biggest advocate was her mother, who basically were pushing the police non-stop to find her daughter because she knew about the police phone call. She knew that her daughter would never not talk to her, and she basically drove the police insane, going, "Please look for my daughter." I hope my mom's like that if I ever go missing. But eventually the police do search for her in the last area that her cell phone was, pinging off towers near Oak Beach. So in December of 2010, that's when police are finally starting to look. And unfortunately, they do find a body, but not the one that they were looking for. They find the body of Melissa Bartholomew. Sorry, I'm bad with names. You're gonna learn this as this channel goes on. But they find her body. Fortunately, after they do find Melissa, they find the bodies of 3 more women who were also buried along the same stretch. Those women all became known as the Gilgo 4 victims, assuming that they were all killed by the same person, as they were all sex workers in their 20s, all advertised on Craigslist, and also their bodies were wrapped in burlap silks. So clearly they still haven't found Shannon, but they didn't really expand their search until months later, and that's all due to the corruption that was happening in the police department. So basically they had these 4 victims and they weren't expanding like they should have immediately. After such months, they in fact found 6 more sets of remains. Some of the remains that were found were actually previously discovered, think a torso back in 2003, and now they're finding the rest of the remains from these women. Now we're going to talk about more of the corruption side of it, why it took so long to find the Long Island serial killer, and that has to do with the Suffolk County Police Department, and we are about to meet James Burke. Burke was police chief from 2012 to 2015, and let's just say his reign was not a very lovely one. During this case in particular, the FBI did offer help, considering, they have a serial killer on their hands, and they're not getting anywhere into finding him, and Burke was like, no, we got it. We got it. They, in fact, did not have it. But I will say that Burke did have some things to hide, and at one point, someone broke into his car. His name was Christopher Loeb, and when he broke into his car, he found a duffel bag filled with porn, sex toys, and this was in his police vehicle and a police duffel bag. So you really shouldn't find those in your work bag and work cart. You know what I mean? Is it just me? Well, let me just say, Burke was mad. Burke was mad. And so, when he was arrested, Christopher Loeb, when he was brought in and arrested, Burke beat the crap out of him. Was like, oh, you're not gonna do this into my car. And he beat up Christopher Loeb, the suspect of breaking into his car. And so then, Burke was arrested for doing that in 2016, and he went to jail for 4 years. But that kind of opens up a new aspect to the case, because now Burke is arrested, so someone else new can come in and take over the Long Island serial killer case. So I guess thanks to Christopher Loeb for really being the reason that this case was able to break open, because the leader of the corruptness was booted out. So whoever thought that you'd be thanking a criminal for justice? I don't know. This case, well, now that Burke is out of the way, the FBI can come in and take over the case like they should have all along. The new district attorney launched a Gilgo Beach task force, which took charge in gathering more evidence and fully being dedicated to this case, because killer's still out there, people. Serial killer out there, so many bodies. I did forget to say that task force was brought together in 2021. That's right, 4 years ago, when it should have been brought in to begin with. Hello? Then again, I guess we do have to remember, how some people feel about sex workers, which is completely wrong, by the way. A crime is a crime, no matter, what it's against, if that makes sense. And unfortunately, crimes against sex workers and people of the sort aren't looked into as much as people that are more, privileged and rich and white. Now, I will say that the FBI already did kind of have some leads that were quickly stopped by Burke back when he was in office, such as cell phone pings, because the suspect was actually using a burner phone to call up one of the victim's sisters and say awful things to her, like your sister's a whore, all these awful things, saying her sister's just all awful. I can't even imagine how they didn't go off of that, and they were like, oh no, we don't need your help at all. Stupid. And how nobody was like, hey Police Chief Burke, we should probably look into this. I guess that person would have probably been fired though, because corruptionists. Yeah. Regardless, still makes me mad. And in July of 2022, police arrest suspect Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect from Massapequa Park. They found Rex by going back and going through interviews and re-interviewing people and details and all that such. One of the biggest pieces of evidence was one of the witnesses who last saw one of the victims. They saw Rex's car when Rex was in the house with their victim, or allegedly, that they were friends with, and he had to scare Rex off, and the friend had seen Rex's car when he went to go drive away, which was a great avalanche. And Rex also is 6'9", this big burly dude that the friend said looked like an ogre. But police at the time didn't listen to him. But now with the task force, they were starting to listen. So they looked into the avalanche, and they found owners, and one of them was Rex, the ogre-like man with the description that the friend gave. Perfect rat, right? So now they're looking into Rex Heuermann. And going back to the phones that officers previously had stuff of, they basically were able to triangulate the towers as to where the burner phone was at the time, and they also matched those records to Rex Heuermann's personal phone, which was around the same area at the same time that the burner phone was. At this point, they're thinking, same car, same phones, this might not be a coinky-dink. And they would also eventually go through his search history, and his search history not only had morbid things such as like murder and all that jazz. Is the Long Island serial killer caught? Is the Long Island serial killer dead? Like, basically looking up all these things about murder and the Long Island serial killer, and it was just all looking like, suspicious. He also looked up hunting humans. Really? Really? You gotta look up hunting humans? And then they thought, this is probably our guy. DNA technology was starting to get on the up and up, and so they were like, okay, we have DNA from these victims' bodies. They had hair, I believe, and actually, no, they had hair, not that I believe. And they went, let's get this guy's DNA and let's run a search on it. But you can't really get someone's DNA unless you have a warrant, unless they discard their DNA willingly. So, they were following Heurmann, and he was eating pizza, and he had crust in the pizza box. He didn't finish the crust, and he threw that out, and police went, I'll take that, and they got his DNA off of some pizza crust. So, always eat your entire pizza and don't leave the crust. That's what we can learn from this, right? And the DNA did hit for one of the hairs on the bodies. DNA also hit for, I believe, Heurmann's wife and daughter. And so it was kind of like, yeah, this is definitely our guy. Clearly they didn't think his wife and daughter had anything to do with it, but like they're gonna be like around him, so it all just makes sense. And so they arrested him. And looking at Rex Heuermann, he looked like a normal guy. The only thing that people really kind of put off about him is that he was like supposed to be this really good architect, but his house was kind of like, like it definitely needed some stuff done to it that an architect would have done. But they think that because the house was previously his mother's, that might have something to do with it, and childhood trauma, and we see this a lot in serial killers, you know what I mean? As of right now, Rex Heuermann has been charged with 7 murders, the original Gilgo 4, and other victims including Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and Sandra Costello. And oddly enough, the case is still going on, and the defense is trying to get the DNA taken out of the evidence, but the prosecutors actually brought in like a Jurassic Park clip to be like, hey, they used it in this, why can't we use it in it's a whole odd situation. But it all makes sense to be like, hey, this is like the type of thing that we used is also used in this, and they're using it as an example. But yeah. And now I kind of want to go back and talk about Shannon Gilbert a little bit, because she initially, her missing was basically what ignited this case, you know what I mean? With her mother pushing the police to try and find her because she was missing. Her body was actually found in 2011, around where her last phone call was made. Her body was found in a marsh, without pants, and she was wearing jeans, so she was just kind of in her, I want to assume, undies, and the medical examiner said that it was an accidental drowning, which to me doesn't make sense because she didn't have pants on, and her pants were found, like, I think that something else went on, and they just don't want to look more into it. That's just me, though. That's just me. As of right now, we are still waiting for Rex Heuermann's trial to start. Recently there was, I watched a couple of documentaries on him, but the most recent one that came out earlier this year was about, more about his family and his son and daughter and wife. The wife is still in denial at this time that he did it. The daughter was in denial, but now kind of is like, no, I think he did it. And I think it's a very tough thing about the situation, especially when it comes to family, and it's like, that's your father, that's your husband, like, it's hard to think like that, so I get it. You can't really blame him. And a lot of the documentary really was about how could the wife not know, how could the family not know. And I feel bad because it's like, in my head, when I was first thinking about it, I was like, how does this wife not know? But then, like, I also understand, you know, like, she might have looked past these things, and because he, from what we were told in the documentary from her story, was he kind of, like, saved her from an abusive marriage, and, like, he was just kind of, like, her everything, so, and they would go on a lot of vacations, like, I get it, and I feel bad for the family, but also, you know, he has to do time for his crime. You know, I feel no mercy for him. I feel mercy for the family because they're also technically victims. They're not dead, but, like, they have to go through this too, unfortunately. They're just a different type of victim. And I also feel bad for the family of Shannon Gilbert, going back to that again. I do hope that there are more updates on her case, and hopefully we can actually get more answers. I think that it possibly could be a cover-up for something, but, you know, you never know. But yeah, this whole case has a lot of just sad things going into it, even though they found the alleged mastermind behind it. It's still sad. The whole thing, just all unfortunate. And one of the most recent updates as of April 2025, remember the bodies I was talking about before where they would find, like, remains and then they found the rest of the remains? There was one that they nicknamed Peaches because she had a tattoo of a peach on her torso along with a child's remains, and they actually identified that recently. And their names are Tanya Denise Jackson and her 2-year-old daughter, Tatiana Marie Dykes. And while their remains were found decades ago, they were just identified. And while Rex Heuermann hasn't been connected to their deaths yet, it is possible that he will be connected to them. So while this case is very unfortunate, you've clearly seen me crafting this entire time, and I wanted to craft something a little bit happier because this case is very hard to listen to and very hard to follow. And so I'm about to show you. Do you have any guesses? Any last minute guesses? You probably didn't guess this, but this is an egg dragon. Look at this egg dragon is huge. So I was following a dragon pattern, and I was like, you know what? I want to make this into an egg. So the wings are like over easy eggs. The body kind of looks like scrambled eggs, and then you have the fur that goes all the way down here. As you can see, I'm holding it like a fish. This was a big project. Okay, so that's why it took me a while. But yeah, very cute. This will be up on my Etsy probably later this week. I don't know what to price it yet, but yeah. So what do you guys think? They're cute. But yeah, leave your thoughts down below about the Long Island serial killer case. Are you also following along? What are your thoughts about the Shannon Gilbert angle? Is there a cover-up happening? What have you seen any of the documentaries? Let me know down below. And also, let me know if you've been crafting during this, because you can see me crafting, and I want you guys to be crafting too. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to stay safe, be cozy, and I'll see you later.